Coming up on episode 141 of Creative Writing, I'm talking all about book launch promotion.
I can't go back to sleep, it's almost light. These restless thoughts have kept me up again tonight.
Hey there, creatives. This is Kirsten, the host of Creative Writing, and this is the podcast just for you, a writer, blogger, or creative who wants to build an online platform without being smarmy. I want to say a special welcome to anybody who is new, joining us from the Indie Novelist Summit that went on last week. And I've been hearing from a lot of you guys and was really excited and surprised because sometimes summits, you just never know who watches and sometimes people don't connect. But I spoke at the summit and have been hearing from a lot of you. So if you're new, thanks for joining us. And if you're not old, but if you're a seasoned listener, I'm really glad you're here as well as always. The best way to connect with me if you want to not miss a podcast episode or anything else going on, like the Indie Novelist Summit, which I didn't talk about here on the show. I try to keep things a little bit more evergreen if possible, so that if you are one of those people who discovers a podcast and binges the entire thing, I'm not spending a lot of time talking about like the news this week. So that's not what the podcast is. But in my weekly email on Fridays called The Quick Fix, I do talk about more time-sensitive things, news, updates, all that. So you can go to creativewriting.com/quick fix to sign up for that. And also, if you want to connect with the community, there's a great bunch of people already in there, and they're just waiting for you to come and add your voice to the conversation. And you can find that at creativewriting.com/community. And if you want the links and actually to read what's going on in this episode, you can find the podcast show notes over at creativewriting.com/141. I don't do transcripts. I do actually like a full meaty blog post that is basically what I talk about on the podcast. Sometimes there's some more details on the podcast because it's easier to talk for 30 minutes than it is to write 10,000 words in a blog post, but the basic gist will be there, and all the links that I mentioned will be there as well. So last week in episode 140, I talked about book launching and gave you a super simple framework. And I don't know if you guys, I didn't really hear of anyone saying like, whoa, that was a little more simple than I thought. But I mean, it really was like a step back bird's eye view, way more simple than what you're thinking. So the next couple episodes, I want to dive a little bit deeper into some of the nitty gritty things about book launching. And again, I am focusing on book launching, but when you're launching a course, service business, other products, these things can, a lot of them apply to you as well. And so I'm keeping you in mind. I am talking about book launching. I am talking about Amazon, but I also am mindful that not all of you are doing that. And so I hope that this is also, I'll be kind of peppering in tips for other kinds of launches and things like that as well. And so I hope that this is something that will be relevant to you, whether or not you're thinking about actually launching a book on Amazon. Okay, so today we're going to focus on promotion. And I'm really not going to do a whole lot of detail on the work probably of getting your book ready, writing it, formatting, all that kind of stuff. I gave some good links in last week in episode 140, creativewriting.com/140, I think, to some of the resources I use and things like that. But I don't want to spend a lot of time there because everybody has a different process for writing their books. I have found that I was shocked by my process, which is writing books super quickly. I don't want to go into craft a whole lot. And I don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time on formatting and things like that because that's a little bit more straightforward. Like you do it yourself or you hire somebody. And if I haven't left links, I will. Maybe I'll have an episode where I give some generals. But I feel like the really hard work that we all struggle with as creatives to a great or small degree is this whole idea of marketing and promotion. So before I really get into some specifics, can we just like pause and talk about these ideas? Because I feel like when my mindset shifted around this idea of marketing and promotion, it changed everything. It made these things not a headache. It made them not something I dreaded. So let's reframe it like this. When we're talking about marketing and promotion, yes, it can be annoying. Yes, it can. You may just want to write your book. But if you're thinking about these ideas not as like you just have to make sales or it's just this thing that we have to do now that the internet is there. We just have to market our things. Okay, no, let's stop and think about this. And I've said this, I know, on the podcast before, so forgive me if you're like, oh, stop it, we've heard this. I think back to when I was in high school and I was reading some of my favorite books. And I remember there was a time, multiple times actually, where I wanted to contact the author. And back in the day, I had books. I usually got them. There was a really great used store and I would trade things in or buy. And I had, these great paperbacks, and you'd read them and you'd get to the end. And I would think, man, I would love to just tell this author what I think about this book. I loved it. And then you look and there's like this little bio in there and that's it. And it was like, well, I mean, how do you even send fan mail? Where do you even send it? Like if you're going to mail it, like I did a lot of letter writing, you guys, back in the day. Oh my goodness. I was a crazy queen letter writing person. I actually called email the whore of communication back when I was in college, which is a far cry from today where I do a lot of email marketing training. Anyway, I wanted to write fan mail, actual letters to people that, whose books I read and I loved, and you couldn't really do it. Or if you did, I mean, I'm sure there was a way, like I know authors got fan mail, but as a reader, I had no idea how to connect. Today, if I like a book, I can go on Twitter and find that author in about 5 seconds and tweet at them. Or I can go on to Facebook and find their Facebook page and I can message them. Or what I usually like to do, go to their website, sign up for their email list, hit reply, which will go to them or their assistant if they're not hands-on with their email. And you can actually get a hold of a person. Maybe it's their assistant, maybe it's not them. But you're going to get a person. And if it's something good, or even if it's, the other day I read a book and the author somehow chapter 2 had switched with chapter 19, and reading it, I was so confused. And I got to chapter 19 and realized like, oh yeah, this is what was missing. And, I was trying, I tried to get a hold of the author essentially to say, hey, you might want to fix this. It was a new release. If you want to say something good or bad, you can get a hold of that person because someone's going to pass it on, even if they're using an assistant. That is such a gift. That is such a valuable and amazing thing. And for people like me, I am an introvert. I'm an outgoing introvert, but I need so much alone time to recover from even things like this, where I'm in a room alone talking, but it feels like a connection. Maybe I'm a super introvert because that maybe is a little bit too far. This should not feel exhausting the way it does to hang out with a person, but it kind of does. So for someone like me, I don't always want to connect necessarily. I get overwhelmed, but this week, for example, I had a beta reader who was reading for one of my Emma books. She and I carried on like a 10 email conversation. Actually, I had several emails like that with some of my Emma fans this week. And it was amazing. As an author, getting to connect with those people. Great thing. So when we are talking about marketing and promotion, I want you, when you get grumbly about it and you think, oh, I just want to be writing or I hate this, I'm not saying don't outsource that. I'm not saying you have to love it. But when you're thinking about it in a different way, that it is you connecting with your fans in a direct way, it sounds so much better. It feels so much better. Okay, so that's we haven't even gotten into the meat yet, but that's what I want you guys to think about as we're talking about this stuff. If you don't like it, it's you connecting with your fans. And if you're writing because you love writing and you love writing books that people read, then I'm not going to say you should love marketing, but you should think of it at least in a different way, that it's accomplishing this great purpose of connecting your books and getting them into readers' hands or eyes or devices or the air. I don't know, the cloud, where things live now that we're in this weird digital age. You're connecting with readers. So now that I've said a lot about that, I said last week that there's 3 main types of promotion, and we're going to talk about 2 of them today, but I'll tell you all 3 again in case you didn't listen to episode 140. You can listen to this episode if you haven't, but you should go back and listen to 140. The 3 main kinds of promotion for your book or whatever launch, you can share with your platform, and that's like your email list, your social media, the people that you know. Second, you can ask other people you know to share with their platform. So they would send out an email with courses and things. A lot of times these are like affiliate launches, things like that. And then the third way is paying for ads and promotions. So today we're going to kind of skip sharing with your platform and come back to that, because even though in college I called email the whore of communication, now I love email and want to spend some time on that. But I talk about it a lot and I just wasn't in the mood this week, y'all. Sorry. We're going to talk instead about the other kinds of promotion, asking others to share, and then paying for ads and promotions. And I think these are 2 incredibly powerful ways, and they are, building my email list has been obviously like the best thing I've ever done. I shouldn't say obviously, but it is. I talk about it a lot. So it's obvious. If you don't know me, listen, email has been like the foundation of my business. And it's not that I have an enormous, gigantic, crazy list. I think I have a couple different lists and probably under 10,000, but probably around 7,000 or 8,000 people when you put all the lists together. There may be some crossover. They're on different platforms, whatever. I have a bunch of people. It's not huge, especially when you're splitting it 3 ways. I think 2 of them have around 3,000 or just over 3,000, and the other has 1,500 or something like that. So none of them are enormous, but I'm mostly kind of making my sales through my email list. When I do sell products and am an affiliate for things, that's where it happens. So that is a hugely important thing. But when when it gets to kind of this whole idea of promotion, what's really helped me sell the Emma books, yes, my email list. But where I see the really big spikes other than my email list are when I'm doing newsletter swaps with other authors, which I'm going to talk more about, and when I pay for a promotion. So these are the places where you really start to see the needle move. And it is a little bit scary. The first, asking others to share, is a free thing you can do, but the paid promos are a little bit scary. And so depending on how long this goes, maybe I'll make that a separate episode. I'd like to talk about them both together because I do think they go hand in hand. But let's start with asking others to share with their platform. And I'm going to put a quick plug in for my book, Creative Collaborations, not just because I'd love to sell more copies of it, because honestly, my nonfiction books, I don't intend for those to be a cornerstone of my business in terms of income, but it is a really great book that talks about ways, not just specific ways you can connect with other people for whatever you're doing, not just book sales, but gives sort of more of a framework, not a formula, but a framework, an overall picture of how you can really connect well. Because for me, connections have been massively important, and I see people doing it wrong all day long. In fact, people are constantly trying to connect with me in ways that suck and that I don't respond to. And if they only read my book, there was someone that sent me the worst email ever recently trying to get me to do something for them. It was no one I knew. And I actually sent them a link, and I might have even sent them a PDF and was like, hi, I'm not interested in working with you. Here's why. You should probably read my book. I tried not to be a jerk. Usually I'm not a jerk. I don't remember what they did, but it was something. But if I go look, I actually just opened up my inbox. I just have like 4 or 5 emails that are from people who are trying to get me to do stuff. Usually it's add backlinks to the website, which basically means on my blog, I have a couple blogs and some of them get good Google traffic. And so people find that and then they're like, hey, I have a post about bathing kittens too. How about if you link to that in your blog post? Because it'll help me, not you. That's not what they say, but that's what they mean, because they just basically want me to do something for them. That doesn't work well. And so when we're talking about this whole idea of promotion, by asking others to share for you, the foundation and core of that is how you have relationships. And so in Creative Collaborations, I talk a lot about ways to do this well, to form these connections, and ways you really shouldn't. It seems obvious, but because so many people do it wrong all day long, and you may be getting those emails too, I just think it matters. You need to know. You need to pay attention to that. I'll touch on some of it here, but the book has more. So when you're asking others to share with their platform, this newsletter swaps are the hugest. Oh, y'all, I'm too excited to use real words. It's the hugest. We're going to stick with it. It's the hugest way that fiction authors are actually spreading the word, especially indie authors. It's the biggest way that indie authors are spreading the word about their books being out. And I love paid promotions and have found great success with them, but I have a few author friends who are not doing any paid promotions and are just setting up newsletter swaps. So what this looks like in terms of fiction, and then I'll talk about nonfiction as well and affiliate programs. But newsletter swaps are basically when you and another author are putting each other's books or mentioning the books in the emails that you send out. And it doesn't mean like, okay, this Saturday I send yours, you send mine. It looks more like Facebook groups. Typically how I see people doing this, someone will post, here's my book, here's the genre, here's when it's out, here's the blurb, here's what I'm looking for. And give some specific information, who can share when. And then people will comment, I can share it on this date. And this has required me to get all up and personal with spreadsheets, which if you've been around a while, I hate them. However, they're making this all very possible. Maybe I'll take a screenshot of my spreadsheet for the newsletter swaps. But basically, I've set up a spreadsheet where each week I send maybe 3 to 4 I mentioned 3 to 4 other books. So for Emma, I send out the weekly clean reads, and it's got 3 to 4 books from other authors. If I have a new release, I'll also mention it there, but I will send a standalone email, like just during the week or whenever the book comes out, or if I'm doing a launch where I don't want to tell them the day of and I want to tell them the days after, I will tell them then. But I'll send a separate email for my own books, but I'm sending those. So those spots are authors that I have swapped with, and then they are sending for me at a separate time. And this has been really effective because even if it's somebody with a not huge list, my list for Emma's just passed the 3,000 mark, which I think is great for just starting it this year. I'm really happy, although I'd like to be at 10,000, but we're at 3,000. It's fine. Some people I swap with have smaller lists, but I will sometimes see a bigger bump in my sales when those people send, because they have great readers and people who really care. They really open the emails. My Emma emails have a much higher open rate, usually around 50%, which is crazy for that size. For nonfiction, for the quick fix, I just actually cleaned my list because I like to keep at 30% or above. I feel like that's healthy, but also can be hard. I was getting down into the low 20s. And so I went and cleaned out like over 1,000 people off of my email list just last week, so that I can kick those open rates back up and just keep the people who are engaged. So it's not always about the numbers, but I have had a few people that I've connected with who have lists of like 20,000 people. And I'll tell you, when those people email for me, because I also track that on my spreadsheet, who's sending for me and what my sales rank was and how many books I sold that day, I am seeing a huge bump from those. And so newsletter swaps are an incredible tool. But there's some, things you need to know about them, and also ways that you can make it more than just a newsletter swap. So the first thing is, if you're going to try to do these, there's some great groups, and I'm going to leave a link in the show notes to where you can find a list that I'm keeping of these newsletter swap groups. And the thing about this is it's not just about getting your book in someone's email. It's about the connection. So since I started joining these newsletter groups, I have made some amazing connections with other authors, and it's gone beyond just these swaps where I'm getting asked to be in multi-author series, which is something I'm doing now, where each of us wrote a book in the same series. We're all promoting each other. There's all this cross promotion. I'm getting asked to swap with bigger people. I'm getting asked to, and I'm also asking other people like, hey, I like all your books. When you have a new one, just email me. We don't have to go through the way it goes usually in the Facebook group. Skip the group, shoot me an email. Your book's going to go in my newsletter. And so I've been forming these relationships with other authors where we've talked about actually working together on a number of things. So it's not just about the swap, it's about the relationship. And the more you can build those relationships with people in a genuine way. Now, of course, we all want something. Like I will say, yes, when I see a person I know has a huge newsletter list, like I want to get on I want to be on their good side, but that doesn't mean I just want to use them. So you have to find, for everybody, this looks and feels different to not be smarmy. Because we always talk about that here on the show. I don't want to be smarmy, like sleazy sales tactics. I don't like the idea of, like, I'm not going to go to the person who I know has a big list, add them as a friend on Facebook, message them, and just ask them to share my email. I think that would be gross. However, if I can find a way to pay it forward to that person first, or I've read some books by people just because I wanted to, who are maybe a few steps ahead of me, and then I've emailed them to say, here's how much I enjoyed your book. That's a great non-smarmy way to build a connection. And here's how I like to think of it. Maybe that will come back to me in some form or fashion that will lead to book sales. Maybe not. Maybe it will, maybe not, but I'm still going to do this because I want to be connecting with other authors in my space, leaving it open-ended that maybe something will come back to me. Maybe they won't share in their newsletter. Maybe it'll be some other kind of thing where we work together in some other way. I like to pay it forward. So if you're just getting started with this, and especially if you don't have books yet and you're like, I don't have any people on my email list, I don't have anything else, get in there and do what you can. Get into some of these swaps groups. And don't just start posting. And this goes for every Facebook group, you guys. This has been driving me crazy lately because I've seen it everywhere. People join these groups and they don't even look around to see what they're about. People do this every so often in Creative, but for our community, mostly I don't see this. They drop in and you can tell they're new because there's the little badge now Facebook gives you and it's like new member or whatever it says. And then they're asking, like yesterday, there was one in a group I'm in. And I think the question was just something like, what's the deal with self-publishing? And the whole group is about self-publishing. first, that question is so general, I don't even know how to begin to answer it, but also scroll through the group and you're going to see what the deal is. You don't need someone to explain it. You don't need to ask that question. Read the group, read the post, read the pinned, the announcements and the description of the group, and look in the files section to see if there's documents. There are so many things you can do when you join a group. So if you're looking to do newsletter swaps as a fiction author, don't hop into a swap group and assume you know what's going on, because you need to know the expectations of the group and also know the expectations of other people who are sending. And there was actually a great conversation in one of the swaps groups that I'm in where someone asked like, hey, just out of curiosity, how many are you guys sending? And some people were like 2 to 4, which I think is a really magic number. Some people were saying 6 to 8. And I made a note because I was like, I don't know how many times I want to swap with that person, because when you get an email with 6 to 8 books in it, you know that not everybody's going to go click on those books, which is all the more reason you need to have a great cover and description, right? But, I don't really necessarily feel like that's a great swap because you're just one of 6 books. That's a lot. 4 is even pushing it. That's kind of the max that I will do for, and maybe mentioning my own book, but I will try to, make mine a link and not have an image, or make it a little bit different so it stands out or is not competing necessarily with the books I'm sharing. And that's again why I have a separate email for my books with my list. But you need to know those expectations. And I think that's really helpful. Sometimes people will say their newsletter size up front. Some don't. I kind of like to not know as much as I need. It does help when you have a bigger person sharing with again, me being so committed to this whole non-smarmy idea. I know that I'm going to be a lot more motivated to share for someone who has a bigger list. And I want to pay it back too, because a couple months ago, I had 200 people on my list. And so I get it. And I do want to share for those people as well. And so, but you need to look in the group, and some people want to know that, some don't. You also need to stay within the genre. So like in the clean group, so I'm writing clean romance. And that means essentially, for the most part, there is nothing past kissing. And even some like long descriptions of kissing is too much for some clean readers. There really isn't cussing in these romances as well. And there's a whole lot of debate between clean and sweet, which I'm not going to get into because y'all don't care probably about that. But in general, cleanness means there's not a lot of like that kind of content. They're very PG-13, Hallmark movie kind of romances. And so a couple of times I have, agreed to swap and then actually read the book. If I can, I read the books that I send out. And within the first chapter, there were a couple cuss words, nothing major, but I emailed the author and said, you know what, I can't do this because I know my readers and this isn't what they consider clean. And this is not what they expect for me to promote. And so you do need to kind of know the expectations of the group you're in, the swap group, and also the other authors in there and how you define things. So, because you're going to be held responsible for that ultimately. Your readers, if they get that book and it's got the F-bomb on page 4 and they were expecting a clean read, they're going to get mad at you. Just that's the reality. So you need to make sure that you are protecting above all the relationship you have with your readers. And so it's really important. You want to protect the relationship you have with other authors. So you don't want to be the one who has cussing in your book and you join a clean romance group and then they get mad at you and then they're not going to share for you anymore. So you need to know the expectation of any Facebook group you join. But anytime you're talking about sharing promotions and, with email lists especially. And then again, you want to think about how you can actually build relationships outside of this. I have a few people that I've become kind of close to, and we talk, we share our ups and downs, we celebrate for each other and, help each other. Like, this is working for me, this isn't working for me, all those kinds of things, all because I joined a couple newsletter swaps groups. So this is a huge way that fiction authors especially can do this. Now, I have not found a lot of newsletter swaps groups for nonfiction. I haven't found any, and I've been debating about starting one, but nonfiction is such a broad area. You could have Christian books, you could have parenting books, you could have cookbooks, you could have self-help books, you could have business books, you could have memoirs. There's nonfiction's giant, right? So having just a nonfiction group is huge. And, a lot of the groups I'm in, the most effective author groups for swaps are specific to the genre. There's science fiction and fantasy, there's young adult, there's paranormal romance, there's regular romance, there's historical romance. All these, it's much more helpful for most people to be in that niche that you're in. So nonfiction, I have not seen a lot of these, but I know in the past, I have people that I've built relationships with. Again, we're back to this idea that you got to build the relationships. Where I've said, hey, you know what? I have a book coming out. Would you mind sharing it? And they said yes or no. Most of the time, yes, because I'm not reaching out to people I don't know. I'm reaching out to people that I've connected with. And I'll tell them, hey, next time you have a thing, just tell me and I'll happily share for you. I think nonfiction people should be doing this more. And again, this is why I've been debating. I have a Facebook group created, but I haven't pushed play on it yet because I have too many Facebook groups anyway. But it's something to consider. If you don't have a swap group, you don't have to be formal and have a swap. You could email a few people. Just if you're going to do it, again, a lot of this is in creative collaborations, but make sure you're doing it in a good way. You're not doing it in a way that makes people feel used, that you're giving back, and that maybe you're giving first to that other person, that you are doing things, you're paying it forward before they have a chance to pay it back. And also being open that they may never pay it back, because I've had that happen as well. So build relationships with other authors and with other people in your niche. And a lot of people, affiliate marketing might go in here as well. So some people, when launching a course or coaching program or membership, will have an affiliate program. And I have a lot of people emailing me and saying, hey, do you want to be an affiliate? I'm about to launch this. So I was a speaker at the Indie Novelist Summit, and I was also an affiliate. So I emailed out for Brian, and I made a couple commissions, nothing major on that. Some people will take the affiliate program really far and have it really committed, where you're supposed to send X number of emails per day. So this is always, again, you want to know the expectations of whatever it is you're getting into. Affiliate programs can be kind of loosey-goosey or super specific and super tight and rigid about, those kinds of things. So again, know the expectations, build the relationships. But if you're a nonfiction author, or you're someone who is doing a lot of work in courses and things that could have an affiliate program, that's another way you can get people to share. Personally, I do like an affiliate program every now and then, but I've become a lot more reticent to them because I think people are getting so many of those messages that they don't like them. But I'm almost more likely to share something that I just like for a friend. And in fact, I've told a few people yeah, I'd love to share that. I don't want to be an affiliate. I just want to tell people. And I've done that a few different times for friends of mine. And then when I need something, I'm happy to go back to them, and they're going to be happy to share for me. So this is a huge way, and it's really underutilized. So I want you to think about the connections you already have. If you don't have connections in your field, I want you to think about where you can go to make those connections. And I want you, in a non-smarmy way, to start making connections in an open-ended way. Like, I'm making this connection, hoping one day it comes back to me, but also just because I want to. I want to lift up this author. I hope one day they do it for me, but I'm going to lift them up because I'm going to be that person lifting other people up. And there's the quote about the rising tide lifts all. It's supposed to be boats, but I like ships better. I heard ships first, but I think the original quote, which now I can't remember who it's from, and you're all going to know when you're going to send me messages. Okay, I should have looked it up. Didn't mean to say it. It just happened. But a rising tide lifts all ships. And I think it does. And so I like to think of, when I share books from other clean romance authors, I don't read just one author. I'm not competing with all these people. Yeah, sometimes you are, but that's not how I think of it. Right now, my book has been number 2 in a whole bunch of categories instead of number 1, because one of my BFFs in the clean romance world put out a book the same week I did, and she's the number 1 spot. And you know what? She and I have emailed each other and celebrated together. Would I like to be in the number 1 spot? Yes. Am I sad that she's there? Nope. So I think the more you can do that. Now, this may look totally different for you. You are a different person than me, but you're hearing the Non-Smarmy podcast. So that's the work I'm going to give you, is to focus on building relationships in a non-smarmy way. I am going to split this up and do promotions and ads in a separate podcast because we're about at 30 minutes. I'd like to stick the podcast to about 30 minutes. I am going to start doing interviews every so often. I have one right now. I have 2 interviews I've actually done, but need editing. It just takes a lot longer to edit and also get the show notes up for those. So I will have those, but when I'm solo talking, I should probably keep it at 20 to 30 minutes. Y'all, I had no idea how much I could talk to myself in an empty room until I started podcasting. It's a little crazy. So this has been kind of the number 2 way to promote your book, asking others to share with their platform. And I hope that it's been really helpful, but what I want to leave you with again is that the relationships last longer than somebody sending out an email for you. So make sure that you're focused on building something lasting. Think about the long term, not just the short term, because you don't want to, get caught up and accidentally use people or have bad practices or, do something that might help in the short run, but won't be long run. Think about, yes, I want a newsletter swap with somebody, but I also want to start building a network of people that I trust in my space. And so I think that that's hugely important, and will come back to you. It doesn't always, and then you'll have that person that you don't work with again, maybe if it's really awful. You share for them and they don't share for you. Whatever, you're going to find that out. But I think it's really important to build those relationships. And so I'm going to leave you with that. That is a key way to promote whatever it is that you're launching. And then next week I will talk about ads and promotions, and then I'll talk about email, and then we'll probably move on to something else. So thank you guys for listening to me talk alone in a room and say words like hugeness. I'm really glad that you're here. I would love to connect with you and know that you're listening. Feel free at any time to send me an email, Kirsten, that's KIRSTEN, at createifwriting.com. You can find the show notes again at createifwriting.com/141 for episode 141, or join the conversation in our community at createifwriting.com/community. Now it's time for you to go out and create content that you love to serve your people well.